If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. The Cleveland Browns are in the middle of one of the most unusual and intriguing weeks of their season so far. Not only are they adjusting to life across the Atlantic, getting ready to play in England in front of a massive international audience, but they're also juggling injury concerns, leadership questions, and the spotlight of national media after a viral moment involving their rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders. The combination of all these storylines makes Cleveland one of the most talked-about teams in the league right now, for reasons both good and frustrating. The most immediate piece of news that fans latched onto came from Thursday's injury report. It wasn't just the list itself that grabbed attention, but the optimism tucked into it. Star defensive end Myles Garrett, the heartbeat of the Browns' defense, was upgraded from a DNP that dreaded did not participate to limited. On the surface, that's just one word changing, but it's a huge step in the right direction for Cleveland. Garrett is the type of player who changes everything, not just for his defensive line, but for the entire unit. Opposing offenses spend the entire week scheming for him. Quarterbacks check where he is before every snap. He's the anchor, the disruptor, and the identity of this defense. Head coach Kevin Stefanski had said on Wednesday that Garrett was day-to-day, which usually means the medical staff is keeping a close eye and there's hope for improvement without making promises. The fact that on Thursday, during what was only a walkthrough session in England, Garrett went from not participating at all to at least being able to do some limited work suggests real progress. And that's critical because the Browns desperately need him at full strength. So far this season, Garrett has already piled up 4 sacks, along with a league-leading 8 tackles for loss and 8 quarterback hits. Those numbers don't just tell the story of an elite pass rusher. They reflect someone who has his fingerprints on every game he plays. Still, the news wasn't all positive on the injury front. While Garrett's upgrade was encouraging, the Browns also saw cornerback Greg Newsome added to the injury report with a hamstring issue. Hamstrings are notoriously tricky, especially for defensive backs who rely on explosive bursts and lateral movement to shadow wide receivers. Newsome being listed as limited means he wasn't shut down entirely, but any soft tissue injury this late in the preparation week is a concern. If he's slowed down or unavailable, it reshuffles the secondary, forcing depth players into bigger roles at a time when the Browns are preparing for an opponent in an unfamiliar environment. The offensive line had its own lingering question mark as right tackle Jack Conklin remained limited with an elbow injury. Conklin's presence is always important because he's one of the anchors of the offensive front, but if he's less than 100%, it impacts both the run game and protection for whoever is under center. Meanwhile, the team did get good news on a couple of other key contributors. Safety Grant Delpit and tight end David Njoku were both upgraded from limited to full participants. That's significant. Delpit is a versatile piece in the secondary who can play both in coverage and near the line of scrimmage, while Njoku provides a reliable option in the passing game, especially as a safety valve for young quarterbacks. On the flip side, defensive tackle Mike Hill Jr. was ruled out entirely after not traveling with the team due to a knee injury, thinning the Browns' rotation in the trenches. As if the injury report wasn't already enough drama, the Browns also found themselves at the center of the NFL's viral media cycle thanks to Shedeur Sanders. The rookie quarterback, son of Deion Sanders, was suddenly the subject of heated debate after his bizarre reaction to being asked about the team's decision to name Dillon Gabriel as the new starting quarterback. Gabriel, the former Oklahoma standout, has apparently impressed the coaching staff enough to leapfrog Sanders and take over as QB1, at least for now. The way Sanders handled that development has sparked endless takes. Instead of addressing the media with words, Sanders chose to mime his responses, silently mouthing answers without actually speaking. The clip instantly spread across social media, with fans either defending his right to protect his words or blasting him for being immature. On one hand, there's an argument to be made that Sanders, as a rookie, doesn't know the media soundbites that can be twisted into headlines. Silence can be a form of control, a way to keep things private. On the other hand, the NFL is a business built on communication, maturity, and image. When you're the quarterback, even a third stringer, every move is magnified. Going viral for a stunt like that pulls attention away from the team and creates an unnecessary distraction. That's exactly the point raised by former Super Bowl champion Jason McCourty, who didn't hold back when he was asked about Sanders on the Jim Rome Show. McCourty, who spent 13 seasons in the league, understands what it takes to carve out a lasting career, and he made it clear that these kinds of antics won't help Sanders earn trust. As McCourty explained, Sanders has been a star for most of his life, living under the spotlight with cameras constantly pointed in his direction. Now, in the NFL, things are different. The media isn't approaching him to celebrate a big win or a highlight reel throw. Instead, they want his reaction to being demoted, to someone else being chosen over him. That's a tough adjustment for anyone, especially a young player used to being the focal point. But McCourty's larger point was blunt. No team wants its third-string quarterback to go viral for anything inside the locker room. For a coach like Stefanski, whose job is to maintain discipline and focus, this type of attention is a headache. It puts the team in an uncomfortable position, answering questions that have nothing to do with Sunday's game plan. McCourty even went a step further, giving Sanders some direct advice. The transition from college football to the NFL requires maturity, and not every situation is going to be what a player hopes for. You may not always be the starter, you may not always get the spotlight, but the way you handle those moments defines how coaches and teammates view you. In McCourty's words, Sanders has to grow up in the league. That doesn't mean suppressing personality or avoiding the media altogether, but it does mean recognizing that actions, even silent ones, carry weight. If Sanders truly hopes to one day be trusted as the future of the franchise, he has to show leadership and composure, even when things don't go his way. That's part of the quarterback job description, whether you're a rookie or a seasoned veteran. The Browns are now facing a unique crossroads. On one side, there's the excitement of Garrett's potential return and the hope that the defense can remain dominant overseas. On the other, there's the distraction of a young quarterback learning lessons the hard way under the glare of NFL cameras. In the end, both storylines reflect a broader truth about this franchise. They're talented, they're competitive, but they're also still finding their identity. Injuries test depth and resilience. Viral moments test maturity and culture. How Cleveland navigates both in the coming weeks will reveal a lot about whether they're ready to be more than just a team with headlines. For now, fans are left waiting to see if Garrett will be unleashed on Sunday, wreaking havoc as only he can. They're also left wondering whether Shedeur Sanders will take Jason McCourty's advice to heart and start building a reputation for substance instead of stunts. In the NFL, the margin between success and failure is razor thin, and the Browns are learning in real time that every word, every injury, and even every silence matters. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. In what's quickly becoming the most talked about move of the NFL offseason, rumors are swirling out of Berea, Ohio, that the Cleveland Browns have pulled the trigger on a stunning blockbuster trade to acquire superstar wide receiver Davante Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders. And according to multiple whispers coming from those with ties to the situation, this isn't just some backroom chatter or a late-night hypothetical dreamed up by fans. This has the unmistakable scent of reality. Jimmy Haslam, the ever-ambitious owner of the Browns, appears to have gone all in yet again, cracking open the franchise vault in a bold attempt to elevate Cleveland's offense to elite status. If the reports are accurate, and there's every indication they are, this could be one of the most seismic trades in recent Browns history. Let's be honest, this isn't your everyday trade gossip. This is Davante Adams we're talking about. One of the most dominant wide receivers of his generation, a 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, and a guy who's put up numbers that rival legends. His route running? Surgical. His hands? Vacuum-sealed. His red zone threat? Practically unfair. For the Browns to be seriously in the mix, and now, allegedly, have completed the move, is sending shockwaves throughout the league. What makes this move all the more compelling is the statement it sends. Haslam and the Browns aren't just trying to compete. They're trying to win now. No more excuses, no more building for the future. This is a win-now roster with a win-now mentality, and Adams is the centerpiece that could tie it all together. The chatter began late last week, when whispers started emerging that something big was brewing between the Browns and Raiders. At first, many dismissed it as the usual post-draft rumor mill. That season where every front office is supposedly on the phone making calls. But then, a few things started to align. First, Adams didn't exactly quiet the speculation. He's been noticeably cryptic in recent media appearances, ducking questions about his long-term future with Las Vegas and expressing, in subtle yet pointed ways, his frustration with the team's direction. The Raiders, for their part, have been unsteady, if not outright chaotic, since parting ways with Derek Carr and entering another ambiguous quarterback phase. With no clear franchise QB and no consistent offensive identity, Adams has seemed increasingly out of place in Sin City. That's where Cleveland stepped in. Sources say the Browns began quietly pursuing Adams over the summer, gauging his interest and the Raiders' openness to a deal. The numbers, as always, were a sticking point. Adams isn't cheap. He's playing on a 5-year, $140 million contract signed back in 2022, and his cap hit is significant. But here's where Jimmy Haslam made his move. According to insiders, Haslam personally gave the green light to make the financial gymnastics work, a rare owner-level intervention that signaled just how serious the Browns were. The plan was aggressive but calculated. Make room under the cap, shuffle a few contracts around, and throw in enough draft capital to make Las Vegas blink. And blink they did. The rumored package includes a first-round pick in 2026, a second-rounder in 2025, and a young defensive piece, likely a name like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah or possibly Greg Newsome too, though no one has confirmed specifics. But the point is, Cleveland gave up a significant haul. They had to, because they weren't just buying a receiver, they were buying a culture shift. They were sending a message to the locker room, to the fans, and to the rest of the league. The Browns are serious. Dead serious. This is no longer the team of endless rebuilds, of draft busts and quarterback carousels. This is a team that believes it can compete for a Super Bowl right now. On the field, the implications are tantalizing. Imagine Deshaun Watson, now over a year removed from his off-field controversies and finally beginning to show flashes of his old self, having Davante Adams as his WR1. Suddenly, Amari Cooper shifts into a dangerous WR2 role. Elijah Moore gets more favorable matchups out of the slot, and tight end David Njoku finds even more space across the middle. Defenses won't know where to look. You stack the box to stop Nick Chubb? Adams burns you over the top. You drop into coverage? Chubb gashes you for 20. And if Watson gets back to even 80% of his Houston form, this offense could be absolutely lethal. But it's not just about X's and O's. This move also has serious psychological weight. For years, the Browns have struggled with an identity crisis. A team rich in potential but poor in execution, always a few pieces away but never quite there. This trade, this commitment to winning, could finally change that narrative. Bringing in a player like Adams not only upgrades the roster, it elevates expectations. It tells every guy in that locker room that mediocrity is no longer acceptable, that close losses aren't enough, that the window isn't just open, it's right now. And let's talk about the locker room impact for a second. Davante Adams is not just a star, he's a professional, a leader, a guy who commands respect not just because of what he's done, but how he does it. Quietly, consistently, with intensity and pride. For younger receivers like Cedric Tillman or even Elijah Moore, having a veteran like Adams around is invaluable. It raises the standard across the board. You don't loaf in practice when Davante's running routes like it's the Super Bowl in July. You don't take shortcuts in film study when he's in the front row breaking down defensive coverages like a coach. His presence could fundamentally change the culture of that offense, and maybe the team as a whole. Of course, there are skeptics. There always are. Some will argue the Browns gave up too much draft capital. Others will point to Watson's still uncertain ceiling or question whether Adams can maintain his elite production now that he's over 30. And there's merit to those concerns. But at the end of the day, the NFL is a league of risks, calculated, bold, and often unforgiving. The truly great franchises are the ones willing to swing big when the moment calls for it. And right now, the Browns are taking that swing. After decades of being the punchline, Cleveland is finally trying to be the headline. And make no mistake, this trade, if and when it's officially confirmed, will dominate headlines. Imagine the AFC North now. Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase in Cincinnati, Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers in Baltimore, and now Watson and Adams in Cleveland. The division just became an arms race of epic proportions. And with Mike Tomlin always fielding a competitive Steelers team, the margin for error is razor thin. The Browns aren't just betting on Adams. They're betting that this move vaults them over the top in the NFL's most brutal division. And that's what makes it all so fascinating. This isn't about stats or Madden ratings. It's about momentum, about a team deciding that enough is enough, that the time for patience has expired, that the fans, long-suffering and fiercely loyal, deserve a team that doesn't just talk about winning, but actually does it. Haslam's decision to open the wallet for this move speaks volumes. He's seen what elite playmakers can do for a team. Just look at how Stephon Diggs transformed Buffalo, or what A.J. Brown did for Philly. These are tone-setting trades, the kind that reverberate through a franchise. And if Adams brings even half of that impact, the Browns may have just changed their destiny. There's also the human side of this story. Adams, by all accounts, didn't force his way out of Las Vegas, but he certainly didn't slam the door on the idea either. He's 32. He knows his clock is ticking. He wants to win. He's not interested in rebuilding or waiting for the next project quarterback to find his groove. He wants rings. And while Cleveland might not have the same glitz as Vegas or the history of a franchise like Green Bay, it does have something brewing. A ferocious defense, a dangerous offense, and now, a front office that isn't afraid to make waves. That's a team worth joining. That's a cause worth fighting for. So now, all eyes turn to the Browns. Training camp is still weeks away, but the anticipation is already reaching a fever pitch. What will Adams look like in orange and brown? How will Watson respond to having the best receiver he's ever played with? Can Kevin Stefanski finally put it all together with this embarrassment of riches? The questions are many, but one thing is clear. The Browns are no longer sitting in the shadows. They're stepping into the spotlight, and they're bringing Davante Adams with them. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!